Catch all the best shows from your favourite fan channels on GFN Soccer TV, now streaming on Samsung TV Plus. Robbie here from DR Sports with some breaking news. Not really surprising news. More surprised that it's only just happening now, and that's that Graham Potter has been sacked as the manager of West Ham United. Official today from West Ham. Potter leaves the club. Remember, he took over from David Moyes and he's had a terrible time of it. He's only had a 52% win record since he's been at the club. You know, they sit in the bottom three at the moment in the relegation zone in the Premier League. I think it's 12 out of 23 games he's lost. I mean, it's just been, since he's been there, it's been diabolical since Graham Potter's been there. And you saw last week, in last week's game for West Ham, that the fans have turned, you know, not only turned vocally, which they've sort of been displaying for quite a few weeks now, but also voting with their feet. Lots and lots of empty seats. And once owners of football clubs start to see loads of empty seats, that gets alarm bells ringing. Plus they're in the relegation zone, and Graham Potter has been sacked. Now, this is really surprising because he did a press conference on Friday ahead of the game, which is a very difficult game, which they got away to Everton on Monday night. He did his press conference. He seemed in good spirits. He admitted that he was under pressure because of the amount of games he was losing, but sort of intimated that he'd spoken to the board and everything's good. And then today, the news that he's been sacked. I mean, even the way in which he's been sacked and, you know, been removed smacks of West Ham being a very unorganised club at the moment. A club that doesn't seem to know what they're doing. And that's never good. Remember, there were big protests last week from the fans, thousands and thousands of fans, you know, marching, showing their discontent with the board at the club, Sullivan and Brady. They want them out as well. As a matter of fact, a lot of fans that I heard speaking quite vocally, including Dan Lawless, who we know from West Ham Fan TV, was saying that the people that they most want out are the owners of the football club. You know what I mean? Not so much the manager. You know, they don't think the manager's good enough and they think the manager should be replaced. But they feel that even worse are the owners. And the West Ham fans are very disgruntled. Ever since they moved from the bowling at Upton Park, their home for hundreds of years, and then went to the new stadium, it's just not been right. You know, they won a trophy under David Moyes, and you know, it was their first trophy for a very long time, winning the Conference League. But then the fans were disgruntled still after then. They've always seemed to be flirting with relegation. The style of football under David Moyes wasn't great, and they ended up removing David Moyes. And in came Graham Potter, and they thought that Graham Potter, you know, would bring a new brand of football, a stylish brand. We always hear the talk about the West Ham way, being the way in which the fans want to see West Ham playing, which is a style of football with flair and passing. But under David Moyes, he may not have got that. It may have been very negative football, but he kept them in the league. But under Graham Potter, not only has the football been dire, but they've been losing literally every week. It's been a terrible start to the season for them. Their only positive result coming with that, you know, surprise away win at Nottingham Forest, who also sacked their manager. But now enough is enough with the board, enough is enough with the fans, and Graham Potter has been removed. And as I said, the only surprise for me was, why wasn't this done last week? Now, who is going to take over at West Ham United? Well, it looks like it's going to be Nuno Espirito Santo, who was sacked by Nottingham Forest. It emerged at the start of the season that obviously Nuno wasn't getting on with the owner, Marinakis, and he was on borrowed time. They did sack him. But Nuno has been great. You know, I mean, he was very good at Forest. You know, I remember when he took over at Forest, it was almost like an identical position to what West Ham find themselves in that they were really sort of a rock bottom, you know, in the relegation zone. And in the space of 18 months, he got them to nearly Champions League football. They're now playing in the Europa League. But he had a falling out with the owner of the club, and that ended up with his removal. I don't think you can really argue that his performances, you know, as a manager were the reasons why, you know, even though they did just miss out on Champions League football. But he punched above his weight, and that's what West Ham need. Now, Nuno Espirito Santo going into West Ham, I'm sure the owners will hope that he'll be able to stabilise them. Yes, he doesn't really play the West Ham way, as I said earlier. His style of football is more akin to that of a David Moyes, which is, you know, very pragmatic and catching teams on the counter-attack. That has been his style. That's what worked really well for him at Nottingham Forest. So, first of all, will the West Ham fans be open to that style? That's the same style that David Moyes had, and they removed David Moyes. But I'm sure a lot of West Ham fans will be looking on it and saying, what we need right now is just a bit of stability, and to get a few games winning under our belt and a few draws and just get out of it. You know, they're in a dogfight. And, you know, even this early in the season, they're in a dogfight. And if you're in a dogfight, Nuno Espirito Santo is a good manager. He's experienced, and he's the kind of manager that can, you know, start to get them out of the problems. So it looks like Nuno's going to be coming in, but, you know, Graham Potter sacked. And how ironic is it that he's sacked ahead of the game that they would have been facing their old manager up at Everton? As I said, really strange that they just didn't do this, you know, earlier on in the week and just get this sorted. But looks like Nuno Espirito Santo will be coming in as the new manager. I don't think the issue's finished there, though. The fans are not having this ownership, but the ownership are not looking to go anywhere. It's a real standoff between the fans and the owners. But the owners will be hoping that results will start to turn the fans around and get the fans off their back and at least get the club back on track. So that's the big news today. Surprise news, as I said, because it wouldn't have surprised me if it had happened earlier in the week. But happening so close to their game on Monday. Surprise news that Graham Potter has been sacked as the manager of West Ham United. It is expected that Nuno Espirito Santo is going to take over as the new manager of West Ham United. West Ham fans, I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments. Fans in general, is this a good appointment? West Ham fans, is this another David Moyes, or is it just about getting out of the hole that you're in right now? I would love to hear from you here on DR Sports. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. I'm sure we'll be talking about this more in the Saturday Football Show today. See you very soon.